Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, if you will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call attendance, please, Sherry.
Carl.
Here.
Bev.
Here.
Tom.
Here.
Mary Agnes.
Here.
Sherry. Here.
Good. Agenda approval, additions and deletions. We have our regular agenda items. Then we have under consent agenda, another bill to pay for the lawyer, and a repair bill for one of the pump stations, sewer pump stations. There's also going to be under new business, where I'm going to ask for permission from the board to schedule a town hall meeting for somebody that's interested in having the rest of Lozon Road with city water. So with those things, if I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented with these items as additions. Do I have a motion?
A motion.
Okay. Do we have a second to that motion? Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. By roll call vote, please.
Tom.
Yes.
Mary Agnes.
Yes.
Bev.
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
Sherry. Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. The first item on the consent agenda is the approval of the board minutes, the regular meetings of October 13th, and then we had a special meeting just before it where we had a debriefing for the financial audit for the year 3/31/21. We also had treasurer's reports, a reconciliation tax account as of September 30th, reconciliation general checking account as of September 30th, cash summary report by general fund for September 30th, and the township investments report as of September 30th. The approval of the clerk's reports, the expenditure and revenue periods from October 1st to October 31st, 2021. There was approval of paychecks from October 1st through the 31st of 2021. The gross total amount is $28,443.40. Paychecks number 2931 through 2955. C, approval of accounts payables, $327.06 in the opens paid through September 1st through the 30th. There was 31 checks written in the $170,067.54. Check numbers 20997 through 21027. There was also $161,361.12, a bank tax account with 5 disbursements, and $331,428.66. That's the grand total of the payables and the tax disbursements. And then we need the request for approval for Kelly Law Firm in the amount of $238 for email and exchanges and telephone conversations regarding the seawall at 7503 River Road. We also need a request for payment for a repair of a different part of the motor that we just replaced last month in the amount of $300 parts and labor. It pertains to the sewer station in front of AJ's Restaurant on M29. We have correspondence. The Marine City Fire Authority runs for October, and the Ira Township runs for October. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with those extras. Anyone?
I so approve that.
Okay. And we need a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. By roll call vote, please, Sherry.
Tom.
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
Mary Agnes.
Yes.
Bev.
Yes.
Sherry. Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to do a little magic here. We're going to switch from the open session. We're going to go right into new business, number F, and then we're going to go down to 2 and invite the sheriff to the podium and let him do the update on the sheriff's department.
Thank you very much for letting me come and speak today. So thank you to the board, and thank you to the people that came, and my friend Brett here. I know Brett through the United Way, and I'm thrilled to be a part of that. He does great work there, so that's a little plug for you. So next time you go first and plug me, okay? So I want to make this as brief as I can, but informative. I'll go through the brochure that's been passed out, but I'm not going to go line by line, hit some high points, and then talk a little bit about the accomplishments we've made since I took office last November. A little bit about myself. My name is Matt King. I'm the sheriff here in St. Clair County. I took over for previous sheriff Tim Dommelin. It was after I was elected in November, but before my term started in January 1st. Tim Dommelin retired a little early, went through the process, was appointed 2 months early, so I've officially been sheriff for about a year. I started my career, well, I'll back up. I grew up in St. Clair County, Wadham's Road near Frith. Basically, my parents still live there. Went to Marysville schools. Lived here my whole life, except for 2 years of my life. A year out of high school, I applied for and was hired by the Detroit Police Department. Worked there for 2 years to the day, and was hired at the sheriff's office and came back home. And I've had great opportunities at the sheriff's office, and I've been there for 23 years. So I've worked just about every opportunity I can in the sheriff's office as far as the road patrol side. Road patrol deputy, probably every shift there was. Drug task force, 4 different times, twice as a deputy, once as a sergeant, once as a lieutenant. Total of about 9 years in the drug task force and 20 years on the special response team. I've been the supervisor of every group in the agency, and before I ran for sheriff, I was the road patrol captain for 3.5 years. So I've been very fortunate to really work my way through the ranks, work the whole county, and work a lot of very interesting assignments. I think that's kind of what prepared me to do what I'm doing now. I want to highlight a couple things, some things that we had to change up last year, and explain what's been going on at the sheriff's office, and then hit on the accomplishments or changes since I took office. So the road patrol, we took about 40,000 calls for service last year, which was down. We expected it to be down because of COVID-19. When COVID-19 hit, we really didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but we knew that we had to make sure that we had law enforcement professionals doing their job, right? So we worked together with all law enforcement agencies throughout the county. The chiefs, the sheriff, and other ranking people in other agencies got together, and we came up with a plan to make sure that if one department went down with illness, we could overlap and help that other department, and vice versa, to make sure we had people out taking calls. At no part did anybody at the St. Clair County Sheriff's Office work from home during the whole pandemic. Wasn't an option in the work we do. That being said, we knew that we had to make sure we were doing what we could to make sure everybody was healthy, not getting sick. We had employees get sick. Luckily, nobody got too terribly sick. A couple went to the hospital, were able to come out, and they're back to work. But it changed how we did policing in 2020. There was less proactive policing because we didn't want to unnecessarily come in contact with people, endangering our employees and the public. So that's why you see some of these numbers down, and I'll get into some of the other things we did. The road patrol, we have several specialties, units in our agency, accident investigator team. They're well known throughout the state. We're called by other agencies in the county and outside the county to help with very intricate reconstruction of accidents. Being a county entity, we know that we just heard a car go by, right? People drive fast and sometimes too fast. And unfortunately, we see a lot of fatals in our county compared to some of the smaller municipalities. So we help some of the smaller municipalities do their accident investigations. K-9, obvious, they have the drug location and tracking of people. Commercial motor vehicle, very important team that we have that helps control the movement of commercial motor vehicles so that we have safe travel in our roadways, and our roadways don't get tore up. We like to foster relationships with these business owners. We don't want to ticket our way into compliance. We want to work together. So we do a lot of proactive work that way, contacting these business owners. So if there's a problem, instead of just setting up and lighting them up with tickets, we contact their dispatchers or the owner and say, hey, let's come up with a different way to do this because there's a problem here. We have our cyber crime that's attached to our detective bureau. We have obviously the detective bureau, special response team, negotiators, and our drug task force. We maintain contracts with several municipalities throughout the county, Algonac, China, East China, Fort Gratiot, Port Huron Township, anchor-based schools, Port Huron schools, and we just picked up a school liaison officer or deputy in Memphis. I'll talk about that later. Drug Task Force, I'll hit on this quickly. I think we all probably understand what the Drug Task Force does by now. We've been around for a long time, but our numbers are not necessarily lower, but certainly different. In 2020, we did 34 search warrants. We usually do closer to 100. One of our goals with the Drug Task Force was to keep an eye on the big cases that we're working. So when you look down at the statistics, you see $850,000 worth of drugs were seized. So we were still doing big cases, but we didn't get into the smaller cases as much because our plan for our Drug Task Force deputies, especially in about a 4-month period when we didn't know what this virus was going to bring us, was they were our B team. Our Drug Task Force is housed outside of the sheriff's office in an undisclosed location because they have undercover cars and their operations. We don't want people to set up and see what cars our Drug Task Force deputies are driving. So they're in a different location. It gave us an opportunity to control what they do and kind of have them be our bench, right? So if we had 15 deputies go down or a whole shift of deputies go down and we have to obviously still be out there, answering calls for service, we needed a way to plug those guys in and gals. So they really were told, hey, go hands off for a little while. Obviously, you're still working. We're still enforcing drug laws, but we wanted to make sure they were a healthy group we could call on if we needed to. They could shave their beards and get haircuts and get the uniform on and get back out there. So you'll see some of their numbers down, but again, 71 weapons seized, $850,000 worth of drugs taken off the streets, and $133,000 with drug-related currency. So they were out there working. If you check the stats, they're just a story in the Times Herald. They're already way surpassing 2020. We're back to business as usual. We've got a dive team and a Marine Division team, 2 groups of people that work very hard to be very professional, but they're regular men and women who have regular jobs and practically work for free. We owe them a great debt of gratitude because they come to work just to help the community, especially the dive team. They're really pretty much not even compensated for their time. We all know all the water we have here and how large the county is and spread out. The huge river, the smaller lake, which really isn't that small, and the huge lake up north. They stay busy and they have a unique skill set and equipment that a lot of counties don't have. We've obviously got neighboring counties like Sanilac and Macomb that deal with a lot of the same water, but other inland counties we'll call on each other, these neighboring counties that have the large water to help, but the inland counties often call us to say, hey, we don't really have the equipment, but we've got this body of water we need searched. And again, there's some statistics and numbers in there. Marine Division, again, we were able to get a grant to enhance the amount of patrols we had, patrol hours we had out there with the Marine Division because of the high water problems and damage has been done to property throughout St. Clair County because of people not adhering to no-wake rules. So we saw an opportunity, seized it, we got a grant, and we're able to get more patrol hours out there. And they obviously do other work that include all the special events, the Mackinac Race, the Float Down, Jobbie Nooner, and other events, and just regular patrol to keep people safe out there. Our corrections facility. Group of men and women right there that really don't get a lot of praise, right? You never hear this cool story about a correction deputy did. Maybe once in a while you hear about a life-saving award, but their day-to-day life is difficult. We live in a great community that we're really well supported. Law enforcement throughout St. Clair County, we enjoy the privilege of having a community that likes us and wants us, right? And we notice that, believe me. Every time something bad happens 2,000 miles away and the big rhetoric is that all the police are bad, my deputies are telling me, you know what, I can't buy lunch because every time I hit a drive-through, the guy in front of me or the gal in front of me said, I'll pay for his meal. That doesn't go unnoticed. It really motivates our people to realize how grateful the citizens are. And I'm always told, like, hey, we support you and we're grateful. And I can't say loud enough that, hey, we appreciate you. And that's not just lip service. Our job is difficult enough. I can't imagine. I went to the National Academy in 2018, and I know people throughout the whole nation who police in different communities from California to New York, Texas to Maine, and everybody's got a different experience, and a lot of people don't have it like we do. So we appreciate it very much. That being said, 90% of a deputy's day is not dealing with the bad guy, right? Maybe dealing with a sad situation, but people generally are happy to see us. The corrections deputies in the jail, that's not the case. Everybody they deal with is the bad guy, and they're long days, and they got a system in there, and they do a great job, but it's challenging work on a good day. You throw in COVID-19, and it really was a whole puzzle that had never been put together. You'll see that we booked in 3,260 inmates in 2020. We usually book in, our average is 5,285. We lowered the number of people being booked in because we came up with a plan with the judges, the prosecutor, and all the other law enforcement agencies on how to handle the jail population without overwhelming and keeping all the beds full, because we needed part of the jail to be empty to be able to move people around. We have a 491 bed facility, which is, I think, the 7th or 8th largest jail in the state. But we had gotten our population down to about 275, and it's around 360 consistently for probably the last 6 or 7 months. The reason we need that movement is, on a busy Friday night, or any night for that matter, if 10 people get booked in, all those people need to be tested for COVID-19 and then quarantined until that test is back. Obviously, if somebody comes in and they're sick with COVID, we can't put them in a pod where there's 50, 60 people. So that being said, and then people in our facility who may be in there that get sick, if they do have a roommate, and then all of a sudden we're locking down 20 people at a time, so they don't expose everybody in the facility. So we need the room to move people around and still have room for max cells where people act out in the jail, that we can put them to keep our population safe and to keep our employees safe. They rewrote the book on how to handle this. And of course, sheriff's associations, we talk and we bounce ideas off each other, but our jail came up with some really key ideas that we had 4 sheriff's offices come and look at the technology we've created inside the jail to limit the amount of people that need to leave our facility to see a judge. We used to have 2 polycoms, which is where people could go in front of electronic media and be arraigned or see a judge or magistrate for whatever the case needed at that point. We ramped it up to 5, and then we've brought in what we call them the phone booths, because they're modified phone booths that we uploaded with technology, so people could meet with their lawyers via Zoom or whatever the media may be, instead of face-to-face, lessening the risk of disease coming into our facility, and also just making some of those services more accessible in a quicker manner. Like I said, we're proud because we just thought it was a cool idea, and we're coming up with these ideas, and then talking with people at conferences and through our email chains, people from other facilities are like, can we come and look at that? So we're proud of the fact that our corrections facility came up with some unique ideas that other counties are now copying. Again, I won't go through all the things on the list of the corrections facility, but I encourage everybody to read the pamphlet. We have one of the most robust programming programs, for lack of a better term, at our facility. Things like the RSAT and the medical assistant treatment program. I have a sheet that's almost 3 pages long of all the different programs that are available, and some are actually part of the sentencing for people. Our plan and idea at the Sheriff's Office is, if somebody comes into our facility, to put the tools and programming in place where if somebody wants to get better, somebody wants to change their ways, somebody wants to leave and not be in the criminal element or get back to their addiction or be an abuser or whatever they're in there for, they have an opportunity to have access and be exposed to some training, and some of that and a lot of that is available to be followed through when they leave. We all know not everybody follows through, and a lot of people do things like find God when they're in jail or prison and say they're going to do good, but if we don't take advantage of the fact we have a captive audience, I think we're failing. It's not 1960 where you just throw them in a cell, give them a PB&J, and tell them to leave when they're done. We have an opportunity to try to get them to change their ways, and it's a responsibility that we take very seriously. But ultimately, it's the responsibility of those individuals to follow through. Like I said, we have a captive audience, so we take advantage of that, and we're proud of some of the things we've come up with and some of the programs that we have in our facility. So, Ms. Supervisor, that's the fastest I've gone through the first couple pages. I think you appreciate that. On the back page are the accomplishments since 2020, and we're pretty proud of a lot of these things. Again, I've worked at the Sheriff's Office 23 years, and I was the Road Patrol Captain for 3.5 years, and I worked with Sheriff Donnell in many different capacities, and I had a lot of influence how things what things were happening in the Sheriff's Office. That being said, I believe that you should always look ahead and always try to get better at whatever you're doing. And I always follow it up with, I don't care if you like to bake cakes, you should probably try to bake your cake better. Or if you're on a softball league on Thursday night, you should probably try to get a little bit better. Or if you're working some pretty serious job like a sheriff or a sheriff's deputy or whatever the responsibility at our office is, you should try to get better. So when I took over as sheriff, I sat back for a little bit. I had some ideas. I already had some plans that I was starting to roll out. And again, I was lucky to have the ear of the sheriff at the time and get a jump start on some of these things. But since I've taken over in November, there's a list here I'm going to run through relatively quickly to explain what we've done to change. And I don't want to act like I take credit for all this. I have a lot of smart people. We were able to have a transition in our administration very smoothly. The undersheriff was a lieutenant that I've worked with, and he's been there for like 21 years. I was able to promote him to captain because I was the captain, so that seat was open. I was able to appoint him for 3 months. He worked with the previous undersheriff for 3 months, like a training program, if you will, which is very rare for a sheriff's office to have that opportunity. Usually it's a cut. Either somebody really young in the agency comes up or somebody from outside, and it's a big mix-up. We're able to have a very smooth transition with this. The undersheriff helped train the now undersheriff for 3 months, and at that point he retired, and he was well ready to retire. And if he wasn't, I would have kept him anyway. You know, he did a great job. But Undersheriff Spatafor was then promoted. That's a appointed position. I appointed him in the undersheriff, and there's a promotional process within the union for the captain's position. Another person I had worked with for 20 years in our agency, and now he's the Road Patrol captain. So very smooth transition. And our jail administrator had been there for about a year before I took over, so I had worked with her for a long time too. So they get a lot of the credit. There's one that I'll take all the credit for the most part, when I'll talk about it later. But again, COVID-19 in the jail and outside, I talked a lot about that. I'll hit a couple quick highlights. We were able to really come up with a program with extra cleaning and again, controlling the movement in our facility and keep the numbers down. We've only had a couple of people hospitalized, inmates I should say hospitalized, and we've had, and I don't think it's a good thing, we have our employees get sick, but we've had more employees get sick than inmates. There are facilities that, you know, 2/3 of their inmate population were sick all at once. So we're proud of the work we've done, and we can't necessarily control everything, obviously, but we've controlled what we can, and that's really kept our numbers down. We've offered we had a COVID-19 vaccine clinic for the inmates, which was kind of unique, and like I said, a lot of the other sheriff's offices followed our lead, and we were able to vaccinate the first go-around 135 people. We had another go-around, and I think 70 people took it, because obviously in our facility, our population is a revolving population, right? We don't have a prison where people are there for 10 years. We have some people that are there for a longer period of time, but it's really moving around. They come, unfortunately, they come and go and sometimes come back. But at any rate, we're able to offer that, and now we have, and we've had for probably 4 months now, the COVID vaccine available for any inmate upon booking if they want it. So we're proud that we got that work done. Body cameras. So body-worn cameras, we implemented and we've gotten everybody up and running. I think about 2 months now, the whole department has body cameras. We all know the technology's been out there for a long time. Anybody from the UAW here? Because I really upset an older gentleman the other day. You're not UAW, are you? Not auto, you didn't work at an auto shop, though. Oh, you did? Okay, well, so did my dad, so don't yell at me. But my analogy was, you know, when a brand new model of a car comes out from Ford Motor Company, you probably don't want to buy that car right away, right? You wait 2-3 years, let the kinks get worked out, and this is where the guy got really upset, but at any rate. And then you buy that car, right? Well, we saw this new technology and there was a lot of questions. You know, how's the equipment? Is it, you know, we know the first models of those cameras weren't very good, and we wanted to wait till they got better. We also had to look at how is this implemented with policy procedures, working with unions. How is the data redacted upon FOIA? That's a big thing, and it's very expensive and very time consuming. How is the data stored? That's the most expensive part, by far. The equipment's pretty expensive. I shouldn't say it, relatively inexpensive for what you think it'd be. Its storage of data is very expensive. So we couldn't just go to the county and say, hey, we want X amount of dollars for some equipment that we knew that probably was going to need to be replaced in a couple of years. We sat back, we watched, we learned, and quite frankly, we plagiarized a lot of other people that had gone through the growing pains, and we picked what we think is the best company available, which was Axon, and we came up with a plan, and we had to get on our CIP, county or capital improvement plan, so that the county could build up the funds and get on board with us, and we had great cooperation with the county board. They funded the project, and now we have Axon body-worn cameras and Axon cameras in our car. Great technology. If Brett and I are both deputies and on a call, and we had our cameras on, and then let's say we're in different cars and we got different angles of what was going on during the incident, I can bring up that complaint number that all the 4 different cameras would be downloaded on, put it up on a screen and watch all 4 cameras at once. And you really get a picture of what was going on. Great technology to collect evidence, to be transparent to our citizens and the public, to show, hey, we're not afraid to show you what we're doing, to protect our deputies, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and then for training, right? We use it for training. And anytime a police officer does something, you know, if we can have the opportunity to make fun of each other, we do, but we learn from it, right? Protect our deputies. It was about a month in of us having the cameras, and about 10 or 12 deputies and sergeants had the cameras so they could learn it, become trainers, and train the rest. We had a complaint on a deputy that he pulled somebody over and used foul language and told the person, don't ever come back to our county, and it was a bad interaction. Well, we look it up, and lo and behold, that deputy had a body-worn camera. We watched the video, and it wasn't even close to what happened, and it was bizarre because nor the deputy or the caller was really even that upset on the traffic stop, and the guy didn't get a ticket. I don't know where he was coming from, but we called the complainant back, because we look into any complaint. We want to make sure we're not perfect. We got a pretty large agency. We're the 16th largest law enforcement agency in the state. You know, I'm proud of the work we do, but we're not perfect. And if we do something wrong, we'll take care of it. And we called the complainant up and said, hey, we watched the body-worn camera of the deputy, and the sergeant said, do you know we have body-worn cameras? And the complainant says, no, I didn't know that, thanks, hangs up, never heard from him again. So, you know, the deputies love it too. You know, some were a little hesitant at first, and they realized this is a great tool to protect us. We're proud of that step, and again, that's part of the transparency and moving up with technology. Talked about the court video booths, with facility cameras. When we built our jail about 16, 18 years ago, believe it or not, all the cameras in the jail, and you can imagine there's hundreds and hundreds of cameras in the jail, and surrounding the jail for security purposes, analog. They weren't even high def or digital. And what a difference. So it was time to upgrade those cameras. Some were not working anymore, and we were able to get all digital cameras. Believe it or not, we would have a fight in the jail, and we would see I think that's, you know, inmate so-and-so, but we're not positive because the camera wasn't very good, you know. And we all know that you don't get good witnesses in the jail for the most part. People don't want to be involved in being a witness to anything that happens in the jail when it comes to inmates. Now there's no question. You could if somebody had 3 letters on their foot, you could zoom in on it, and that equipment is very good. It keeps our inmates, detainees safer, and obviously our employees safer as well. Enhanced training. One of the things I'm proud of is with our Marine Division, we traditionally had a lieutenant that was probably retired from an outside facility, and they're coming here to be, you know, for their retirement job and to be our lieutenant over our Marine Division. They did a great job, and I know the gentleman personally. I'm really good friends with one, but at one point you get a disconnect and a little bit of lack of buy-in, because they know, hey, I'm already retired from over here, I got a couple years left here, and there would be a gap in communication and understanding of the department, and we also had the need for a training sergeant. And I had gone to the National Academy in Quantico in 2018, and you learn a lot about agencies throughout the country, and I realized we are in need of a training sergeant. We're not tracking our training. We don't have somebody dedicated to say, hey, we're up to snuff on this training. There's yearly training we have to do through MCO's mandate, and just keeping up with the times. So I presented this before I was sheriff, and we implemented it where we promoted a deputy to sergeant, and then we filled the position where he is the sergeant over the Marine Division. Better communication throughout the whole county now for not just in the agency, but with other agencies throughout the county. And he's also our training sergeant. And we've been able to implement a few things that upgrade our training. We're signed down with Police One and Lexipol. They're probably the world leader in police policy and training tracking. We've enhanced our training so that deputies can, if a law enforcement agency gets sued or is asked about lack of improper action, it always gets connected to policies and training and knowledge of the policies. We didn't have a tracking system for that, and these two companies I just spoke of have that tracking system. Our deputies are directed to, or it sometimes just pops up on their screen when they sign in. They'll watch a training video, they'll connect that training video with the policy, and then it's digitally recorded, so we have that tracking. So we're proud of that as well. The employee wellness program, that's the one that I kind of take pride in saying this was my baby, this was my idea. Again, I learned a lot about the programs out there in at the National Academy. When I started in 1996, I'm 1 year out of high school, and I moved down to Detroit, and I couldn't even buy my own bullets, but I'm down there, and I'm a police officer, and I'm working with guys that were on the end of their career, and they're Vietnam vets. So you can imagine the different outlooks in the world. And toughen up, Buttercup was the attitude. Now, I came from a pretty strict Catholic household and played football with Coach Braun, who would hit you with a cane if you didn't do what you're supposed to do. And I was just fine with that. But as time went on, I saw a need for a wider view of what was going on in law enforcement, in particular to the effect that our job has on our day-to-day life. Study after study. We're more likely to be divorced. We're more likely to have heart problems. We're more likely to have stress and back and hip problems and knee problems from the equipment, and just maybe not a great outlook on life because of the things we see. 20 years later, all that information had been pounded into every leadership school I went to about, hey, you got to take care of your people. You have to have an outlet for them. You have to talk about things. And we would talk about talking about it, but we didn't do anything about it. And I knew that with information comes responsibility. I know that I can remember some of the bad calls I've had and the accumulation of calls, and personally I've had nightmares and things like that. I'm open with the people that work in our agency about facing the fact that we are subjected to a lot of things that we've signed up for, but we didn't realize the overall pressure that it puts on us, the overall stress. That being said, we become less effective as fathers, husbands, wives, mothers, and deputies to our public, right? And we have a duty to all the people I just spoke of and many others in our life to be as good as we can be. And if we don't face the problems, the stresses, then we're not going to do that. And we're not going to be very happy people. And we're not going to stay retired very long. I always say I want to bust the pension program because I'm going to live to be 110 years old and be retired for a long time. Well, you can't do that if you don't face some of the things that are going to affect you adversely. So the wellness program is something that is together now. The plan is to have all the information on the app. We cover mental health, physical health, financial guidance, because I swear every new deputy, every new cop, it's their first big job and they go buy a big cool truck, and it's like you're just wasting your money. But I could go on a tangent with that. And then spiritual guidance and support. So all of these things are voluntary, but they're things they're for deputies to take advantage of. Sergeants, lieutenant, doesn't matter the rank, and we want them to know that it's anonymous. It's there, and we support it. And not only do we have this program, we're going to have the app. We need our leaders to say, hey, this is okay, this is good. Again, 20 years on the special response team. There's only one other guy in the agency that's ever done that other than myself. I am type A. I am let's go hard. But I also talk very openly about let's also think about the fact that you don't know everything, and there's professionals out there that might help you with certain parts of the garbage that comes along with being a police officer. So I'm proud of that program. It's up and running. And lastly, we added a school resource officer, like I said. Memphis School District approached us. Memphis, most people know, half Macomb County, half St. Clair County. I've always looked at it as a St. Clair County community. Lucky for me, Macomb County Sheriff, why am I forgetting his name? It'll come to me. And the chief of Memphis agreed and said, hey, have at it. They agreed that it was good for us to come on board, and we're partnering with them. We have a school resource officer there. So we have another thumbprint and activity in that school, and able to get to some young people and say, hey, we're the good guys. So with that, believe it or not, that was the fastest I've done that, but I think I hit the high points because I think it's important for everybody to understand that I didn't just take office and sit status quo. Always try to get better, and it's not a bragging part. It's a pride thing, and to show the public that we're always trying to get better. We're not perfect, but we strive for as close to that as we can get, and we'll always try to grow. So with that, I'll answer any questions. And you said you came here for this, so do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to hear who you are
Okay.
and everything like that. I do have a question. I'm newer in the area. I grew up in Detroit, but I moved out of state for 30 years. I'm back here as a new person in St. Clair. I love it. But I found out about this just haphazardly, and I wondered, did the sheriff's office tell the community? I just thought a lot of people would be here and excited to hear
So
what you had to say. And the divers, I didn't know about them. I don't really know about anything. How would do you guys put out a newsletter?
Yeah, so some time ago, we had an article or the mini article in the paper, in Times Herald. Our Facebook page, we're trying to widen our thumbprint on our social media and outreach with our PIO, Public Information Officer. He did put something on Facebook. He put it on there a few weeks ago and had kind of a calendar, and then yesterday he reminded people about tonight and the day before. So we try to do better with that, but yeah, it's a good point. We'd love to get a big billboard and let everybody know, but that's always a challenge to reach out to the public, because there's so much information on everything now, right? So even if you had us on Facebook, if you don't, please add us. Okay, unfortunately, yeah.
And I don't get the Times Herald.
Okay.
So.
And the Voice is a good one too, so at any rate.
All right, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just curious how, is the community involved with all these programs? Do they know about it?
Yeah, the
Do they
dive and
help with the drug situation?
the
I hear that Fort Huron is really, really bad for drugs.
Mhm.
Being new, people just tell me, so I don't know that that's the fact. I don't go there that much.
So,
But do we help as a community? Are we aware?
yeah, so the dive and marine division, those are folks just like you who are walking around and want to help, and they go to training, and usually they have some expertise on the water. They have some passion for that. As far as the drug task force, that is a millage funded drug task force, one of, I think, 3 in the state. So the county collectively votes yes or no to fund it, and they funded it since the 80s. Our county here is unique in a lot of ways because 94 and I-69 end or start here, depending on how you look at it, and we're 50 minutes from Flint, 50 minutes from Detroit. We ask the drug dealers from Detroit why they come here. They say, first of all, they're the big dog because everybody, it's a bigger city in Detroit. Second of all, they get twice as much money for their drugs. And then, of course, we've got the international border, and we have drugs and money going back and forth over the bridge, through the water, and down in the ferries. It's very unique in that manner.
Do you have like a neighborhood watch program?
Different neighborhoods do have neighborhood watch programs, and that's kind of up to the neighborhood. And we've had, he's a lieutenant now, but we've had a deputy that really helped with. He was a deputy when he was helping with it. And whenever a certain neighborhood wants to start one up, we come and participate with that and give some guidance. But we were very well supported here. We, we ask people, like, if you see something, call us. If you see, like, there's a lot of cars driving in and out of that house across the street. You never know if that's the last thing we need for a search warrant or the first thing that gets us to start looking at a house or a person or a problem or an area.
So is there like a tip line or
Yep,
is that on like on Facebook?
should be in this pamphlet, I believe.
Or is it already printed up on something just to kind of?
1-800-642-DRUG.
Is that in
It's not.
here? Okay, I won't.
Okay. Here.
Thank you.
Yep. Or, of course, 985-8115, and I'll write that one too. That's just the non-emergency number for the dispatch. And you've given me something to add to the pamphlet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? I thought for sure you'd have some real hot ones to throw my way that you knew I couldn't answer. I'm just kidding.
Doesn't want you to hang around either.
Yeah, I know. I know better than to hang around after Brent's. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Mr. Brent Gillette, if you please would approach the podium and tell us why you're here tonight.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you giving me some time to talk about a very important service in our community that's in jeopardy of leaving our community. My name is Brent Gillette. I am the Executive Director for our United Way for St. Clair County. Our United Way has been around for over 100 years, or almost 100 years, and we have things that we've been doing from the beginning, and one of the things that we do is needs assessment. We look at our whole county to say what's happening and what's good and what's bad. And about 5 years ago, we did a needs assessment and found out that we had a system, lots of good agencies and programs and services out there, but we didn't have a system in place to connect people with it. And so what people were doing is not being able to get the services they need because they didn't know how to find them. What we considered that was the information merry-go-round, where you would call, the supervisor of your township. She'd give you a couple of numbers, they'd give you a couple of numbers, and then about 2 days later, you'd be back at the same person and now resolve. So what we did is we talked to 5 of our major supporters in town and said, how do we find a system? What do we do? Let's do some research and get the best system possible. So we partnered up with Northeast Michigan 211, which is the whole top part of the state, Thumb area and so on, Midland North, and from to the lake or the river and so on. They decided to be a hub group for us. And they assessed the state to pay for it. And unfortunately, that funding started to dry up. So our United Way stepped forward and said, we will fund it with our partners for 5 years with the hopes that we'd raise some extra money in our campaign to be able to pay for, to continue that funding. Next year, that funding is up. So that's what brought me here today, is the fact that our partner agencies out there said that there's some dollars available out there that qualify under the American Rescue Plan. And each of the municipalities in our county has received some of those. So we sent out letters to 30 municipalities in our town, or in our community, to say, how do we split this up? How do we ask everyone to kind of help in their, based on their citizenship level. And what we did with you guys is we asked, or we connected you with Marine City. So between you and Marine City, you got about 3451 population. And based on the numbers that it takes to run the program, we were hoping that you'd be able to relinquish some of those rescue plan dollars at $1,000 a year for 5 years. Give us $5,000 as your share. What does that make, or why is that important to your citizens here? Last year alone, we, through 211 and United Way Services, we served 254 residents between Marine City and Cottrellville. Our system looks at it in a lot of different ways. We can find who's using the system based on zip code, by the congressional districts, house districts, all those different things, and we look at it for every community to make sure that we're helping. That's about 10% of the residents that live here reached out for something. We noted that 211 became even more important when COVID hit. COVID hit and a lot of people were confused. They were scared. They didn't know what to do. And they started calling the usual suspects. And 911 was the first place that they started calling, and 911 couldn't do their regular business because their phones were pretty well lit up. So we did an extra informational campaign to let people know that they can get answers through 211. We also, the hospital started to do the same thing, and they weren't able to do their regular work. Halfway through COVID, we ended up adding some dollars to our 211 system to create a hub so that people get answers just about COVID, to where they can get tested, where they can get the vaccine, all of those different things, and some information. Because some of it was just, what is the effects and so on. So they just needed to talk to somebody. We have now relinquished that portion of it, but we've seen a 1/3% of our call increase, and it's still to that at this day. We get about 15 calls a day, and about 8 or so of those are COVID related every single day, wanting to know something about it. And we went one step further with our United Way, is we brought a service technician right here in our county. So we have a live person that answers the phone, 24/7 operation, but she's there for 8 hours right here in our United Way office in Port Huron. So when someone calls from our zip code, it gets routed to her unless she's already on the phone. And she's somebody who lives here, understands our community, understands our culture, and able to put people at ease as well as to get their questions answered. So that's what I'm here for tonight, is for you to consider, to think about what you're going to do with your American Rescue Plan monies. We heard that in the North communities, some of them were giving it back because they didn't know how to spend it or where to spend it, because there's a lot of restrictions on those dollars. We made sure that we were a qualified entity for those, and we didn't want to take them all, but we wanted the community to share them and make sure that this vital service stays in our community. 211 is important. We know that for the amount of people that use it. We know that for the questions and the concerns that get resolved through 211. And we would be saddened if we had to make the decision to either cut it down or to relinquish it in our community. And I'm hoping that all of our municipalities, all of our elected officials will look at it as an important service for us and make a decision to help fund it. With that, I'll ask if there's any questions about 211. 211 is, like I said, been around for 5 years now, and we've watched it steadily grow, and but we know there's a lot of people who don't understand what it is. And so this helps us not only get the word out, but also to make sure that it stays vital in our community. So questions? Is that a question I need to answer in full?
No.
Okay.
I have one. You said there was 15 calls for just our area, which is Marine City and
Oh,
Cottrellville?
no, 15 calls in the county per day.
No, but you said when you're doing the 34,051 population.
Yep.
You set us up in that, and then right after that, you said there were 15
We
calls.
serviced 254 residents in Marine City and Cottrellville.
Okay,
last year.
254, all right.
Yeah. So that's about 10% of your population between you and Marine City. And that stays pretty consistent across the board. The only place that it's really an uptick is really downtown Port Huron, and that's because of the density. There's a lot more people down there, a lot more concerns, a lot more issues, and so on.
This is like an emergency call then, right?
Yeah,
It's
well,
free?
it costs us about $50,000 a year to keep this service up and running. And like I said, we pulled together 5 major supporters that got us enough funding for 5 years. And we're coming in 2022 will be our 5th year.
Can you give me the names of those 5 supporters, or are you not allowed to?
They've never told me I have a gag order, but it was DT Energy, Semco, the Atchison Foundation, the Community Foundation, and I think it was the Neester Foundation no, we're the fifth one, United Way, sorry. So, and we all put in enough to keep it going. We put together $250,000 to keep the out of the allocation realm, because that's where it's going to go. If we can't get funding for it, that'll go into allocations. Then it's up to whatever dollars we raise at the United Way. And I'll give you some more bad news. Last year was a tough year for everyone, but it was a 24% hit for our United Way. We usually raise about 1.1 million. We raised less than 800,000 last year for the needs of our community. And we know that we serviced over 16,000 people in St. Clair County with those dollars. And last year the need was up and the resources were down. And that would put 211 at risk if we had to tie it to that system. Okay.
My question is, we have 911 service out here. We just got it a few years ago, right? I don't know how many years ago it was. But there's a lot of problems with it because of Canada. How is this going to affect this 211 number?
211 is exactly like 911. Has the same problems, the same concerns that Canada puts on us and so on. If you're using a cell phone, sometimes it doesn't work.
Right.
But we do have a 7-digit number that you can call on a landline and those type of things as well. But we knew that 211 is so important because all you have to remember is those 3 digits. Most people don't remember a 7-digit number. And before 211, we had a first call for help, but it was a 7-digit number and it did not get the volume of calls that we get with 211. 211 is just, like I say, very easy for people to remember, and it's really good for our law enforcement, for our first responders as a whole. I was talking with firefighters the other day. They keep our cards with them so that when they're out on a fire and someone is really having a meltdown because they're losing everything and they don't know what to do, they can hand them that card and give them some hope at the end of the...
Well, I think the program sounds really great. It's just the service because the closer you live to the water, the worse the service is.
I know. I live up in Birchville. I live right on the water, and a lot of times they say, "Welcome to Canada" on my phone and all kinds of stuff. So, but, you know, I can't, we're looking at it all the time. We're trying to enhance it all the time. I think we're as good, if not better, than 911 as far as our undropped calls. So we're pretty happy with what we've got, and we're getting it better all the time as cyber stuff comes into our community better and better. But there is limitations. I won't sugarcoat that.
Anybody else got anything they want to ask or add?
Okay.
We have to give you an answer tonight, or can we?
No, you can,
Okay.
you can tell me later. We've got till next year to make a hard line decision. My next step is if I can't get help from the municipalities, and I know that you all got tough decisions, and it's not an easy thing to spend your dollars on countywide things when you got issues right in your own township. But at that point, I'll go back to the original funders and see if we can't do it. But I'm hoping the county all the municipalities will give a little bit, and we can bridge that gap and make it happen.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I think we could entertain a motion and table this till next month, if that's all right with you.
Can I share with you a couple of statistics on the type of calls that come in?
Sure.
Out of all the calls that come in, 31% of them are folks that are on DHHS, so folks that are already in the system. 13% of them are over 60, 19% of them are, or 6% are veterans, and 16% of them are on disability. And 28% of our callers are COVID-related incidences. And we see that this is just last month's statistics. So it really shows the whole gambit of folks that call the 211. And when we look at the top 5 things that they ask for, number 1 is utility assistance, looking for that utility. The next one is housing, and housing is one of the worst ones out there because there's no housing available. And then the third one is income support, for incidences out of the norm. And then healthcare, and then food. So those are really the top 5 that are out there that we deal with. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for
very
your
much.
consideration. And all you have to do is either give me a call or send me a letter on what your decision is when the time comes.
I will, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your attention.
Okay.
Have a nice night.
Shall we finish this motion to table till next month? Okay.
I'll
Carl?
second.
And we have by Sherry. All in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Nays, hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right, let's go back up to open session to see if there's anybody in the audience who wants to address the board. Hey, you two in the corner. Did you have something on your mind, sir? It's something that's already on the agenda, or?
No, you covered it earlier about the water on Lozon.
Oh,
Just,
okay.
you know,
All right, well, we haven't got that far, but that's coming up next, okay? All right, well, let's go on to item number 3. We have a letter from Barb Schutt advising us that the total millage rate for Cottrellville Township is for both summer and winter taxes. That's included in your package. The total dropped by .3823 mils due to most taxing units rolling back due to the Headley Amendment rollback process. So no action is necessary, just wanted the Township Board to be aware of it. We also have a request by resident Randy Beavers, 7985 River Road, who recently purchased a 4-unit apartment building, the above address, requesting to have 3 of the 4 apartment water meters removed and proposes to leave it as a 1 single-family residence with 3 stories and a basement. This will change his water and sewerage billing for the 4-unit building to a single-family resident, changing it a 4-to-1, and removes 3 base fees for sewer at $50 a quarter and $30 per quarter for water. His base fee now shows $50.30 plus his water usage and sewer usage. The previous tenant was a family unit. It was a young couple, and his mother and dad lived on 1 floor, and her mother lived on 1 floor. And he picked up the cost for all those individually, so he understands that once he changes this billing service, he will not be able to revert this back to being a multiple residential apartment building after April 1st. That gives him like 6 months to change his mind if he decides that he needs to do that. So it would be April 1st, 2022, and it would remain a single-family residence from that day forward. And that's about all I know. Do you want to approve that? I need a motion to approve allowing him to change to a single meter.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you very much. Item number 5 is a request for local road funding for 2022 assistance program that's been approved by the County Board of Commissioners. We already submitted this in September, and they're going to spend $30,000 for contribution, and the township will pay the other $30,000, up to $60,000, for the culvert replacement over the West Marsh County drain on McKinley Road, which is more specifically on McKinley 1,160 feet north of Lozon Road and south of Shea. It was agreed before our board on August 11th by a resolution that, and now we're requesting permission for both the clerk and the supervisor to sign this agreement with the county for the work to be set next year. Do I have a motion to approve allowing us to sign that agreement?
Motion.
Okay, we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to sign that agreement by the clerk and the supervisor for up to $30,000. All in favor signify by saying aye by roll call vote, please.
Bev?
Yes.
Mary Agnes?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Sherry? Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. We have another. Maybe we don't. Yes, permission to schedule a town hall meeting to offer the information that, to those people who are inquired about having municipal water on the rest of Lozon Road. Right now, they are at, I think, 66. Oh, I don't know, I didn't write it on here. it's halfway down Lozon Road. We're gonna run it the rest of the way towards Marsh. And I'd like to schedule that if we could for January 19th, 2022, at 7 o'clock here in the boardroom. I'm gonna send it out to all the people that are in that district, or would be in that district if we decided to spend the money and go through that. I don't know if we're gonna need the engineers here to discuss that. If I'll ask them if they wanna supply us one to answer any questions that the residents might have. There's only probably 15 or 18 people in that stretch.
What money were you talking about that we might be spending? 'Cause
Well,
I thought the water districts were self-funding.
they are self-funding, but if we don't get to, if we ask the engineer, we may have to pay him for her time or his time that sits here and explain this for a half hour. I think we could donate that much to a cause. Do I have permission to proceed? We need a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. All in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right. Do we have any public comments? Now you want to talk?
No, I mean, I'm pretty good.
Okay, all right. You aren't Mr. Brandt, are you?
Yeah,
Okay, very good. I talk to your mom all the time.
yeah.
All right, we're all set then. As far as announcements are concerned, last month I wrote a letter to Gary Eisen, House Representatives, Michigan House of Representatives, about a bill that we put through, or they have already approved, House Bill number 4722, and it's for, if you recall, it took us a year in the Planning Commission to try and get the short-term rental thing handled for people. And we got it underway, and it was passed, I think, either December of 20 or January 21. And now the state of Michigan has, in all their wisdom, decided that they want to allow those in any zoning district, in any county, in any state, in any city or township. And of course, we can't allow that because it causes so many problems. I was just at one today where the people are from North Carolina. They used to live here in Cottrellville, and they rented it for a couple of days, and right now they're putting a cement wall down between the two people because the neighbors don't care for it that well. And it's, I don't know how high that wall's gonna be, but, it's not supposed to go beyond the end of the house, so I didn't see it till this afternoon, so I'll have to mention it to the building official to see if it's even permitted to do that. You can't have a shrub that goes beyond the end of your building or a fence line. So we'll have to see what that's all about. But anyhow, I sent it to Gary Eisen, and it had already passed. So I sent another one now to Dan Lowers, who is our Michigan senator, and I followed up with another phone call, but all you get is recordings. So I hope that someone will listen at least the state level, for the Senate level, that they realize that this is not a good thing for small communities like us. These people have a 30-foot yard, and by the time you get a family in there with, 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 people, and then they bring their dogs and their grandkids and everybody that comes to visit them, it's a disaster. And we wrote a pretty good ordinance, if you recall. We covered a lot of the territory, the things that the residents came in, the neighborhood came in and helped us write this thing. They gave me a whole list of things that they were upset about, and we addressed them in that ordinance. So that's all I wanted to make sure that you knew about, that's in the works. So if you get the urge to want to write your senator, he's on the website, just tell him that you're not, just ask him to please deny that or vote against it, so that we don't have these troubles. I don't know what good it'll do. So, anybody else got anything else to say? Any board member comments, or?
Their city water line, that goes to Shea and Marsh Road, doesn't it? Is that where it ends?
Shea and Marsh Road?
Yeah, doesn't,
It doesn't go that far.
doesn't go that far?
We're circle.
You don't, yeah, does it
It
get the,
ends
ends
at
at
the
Wedding?
Winners.
The guy in the corner didn't want it.
Is there any reason why we shouldn't maybe contact the people between Lozon and Shea Road so we can loop that water?
Well, that would be the idea, and I've kind of spread it out that way too. When I send the letters to them, I tell them, you know, if any of your neighbors, I mean, even if it gets as far as Marsh Road, it can go north or south too. You know, and like you say, loop it down, go down to,
Instead of having two dead ends.
yeah, I'm not in favor of anything that has to do with a blow off at the end, because it's not feasible. So, but we can always keep the water fresh and moving it if it's got a loop in it. Most engineers don't even draw them that way anymore.
It was just a thought, there's a lot of people in
On
that
Marsh.
section of road between Lozon and Shea.
Yeah. Yeah, that could use water, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We could. Right here.
Do what the people on Lozon want to, you know, go knocking on doors and ask them if they want.
Well, that's what that young man did.
Oh, did
He knocked on everybody's door, but see, that's the thing, people are only interested in just their little section. And when we had the one done on Shortcut Road, he only wanted to do the first mile. Well, I could tell you from the description that that wasn't gonna fly, and I said, humor me and go all the way down to Marsh. And he finally did do that, but we still are just a little shy of 51%.
But can't you join them with this? I mean, I know they don't have to be connected,
No,
just as long as there's a tap in, you know, someplace to tap in.
yeah, well, that first one failed already. This is the second one. This one's got 60, I wanna
Because
say either
66
61 or
sounds good.
67%.
Because 50.1% is what you need, you know, but you need more because there'll be somebody knocked off, you know,
Yeah.
but.
But we have 61 or 67%. Barb just gave it to me, so that's good for, I mean, that's a go, I mean, as far as I'm concerned. But the more people that you put together, you know, the less expensive it is for everybody.
How much distance is that?
I don't know, it's not even, what is it, a mile across there?
What,
From
Lozon Road?
on Lozon from Marsh to,
It's not even a mile.
well, and it's halfway covered already with, where it stopped was the Beauvais farm.
Oh, you're talking about the Lozon Road.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's like half a mile.
half a mile, I think. It's not.
Because
very
I know
big.
when we were doing our water petition, they wanted at least a mile,
Yeah,
you know, more the better. So we got two.
yeah, well, that's what makes a difference, so. So, as long as I can do this, I think that's about all I have to say about anything. You got anything else? We're all set? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:37. All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.